All right, welcome back. So, the idea of interdependence. So, we start out in recovery and we're kind of going on this ride. I just kind of imagined it as almost like this wagon. I'm riding this wagon and my recovery team is pushing me towards the color world. And eventually I start to see glimpses of this color world, and on the other side I'm like, wow, what is that? There's something over there that looks interesting. But it looks scary because it's not something that I'm used to. It doesn't look safe. And I get closer and closer, and I start to see things in this color world. I see to think things that I actually want. And it starts to look really good, and I start longing and desiring to be over to that side. And I get closer, and my recovery team explains to me what some of the things in this color world mean, and that it's not all black and white, that there's a lot of variations of things, and there's different flavors, and and I've starved myself so much. Not whether you starve yourself of food or you binge and purge, you starve yourself of relationships and emotions. And we've been starved so much of emotions that we start to see things, we start to feel things, and it's scary. And we see it for a minute, and then we run back, and so where we can't see it, so we're still stuck in this world. And then we get a little bit more confidence, and we go a little bit further. And this happens for a lot of time, and we get closer and closer, and then we get scared and run back, and then we get closer and closer, and eventually our curiosity and our sense of what we can experience, as much as we can experience on the black and white world, we begin to see things and see what we could really have on the color world, and it actually starts to make sense to us, and we actually start to want it. But we're so afraid to jump over to it. And eventually we come to a bridge, and we see that there's a bridge between the gray world and the color world. And it is explained to us that if we cross that bridge, that it's more like a portal, that once we cross that bridge, that there is no way back. There's no way back to the gray world. And so, we stand there at the bridge, and we stand there, and we get this intense fear, and it's the biggest fear that we've ever experienced in our lives, and we start to feel this flood of emotions and things that are coming from the colored world, and we start to almost decide to cross it, and then we're like, no, I can't cross it, I have to run back. But we run back, and each time we don't run back quite as far, because we want to still see the color world, we want to still keep our eye on it, but we want to make sure we have the security of the gray world. We always have the security of the gray world. And this is what I felt like in recovery that I was at for a long, long time. And each time that I ran back, it would become less often, and relapses or slip-ups, whatever, would become less often, to eventually become the point that I didn't have them anymore, but I was afraid to say I'm recovered. But then I realized at one point, as long as I keep myself so close to the color world that I'm actually enjoying it to as much as I can, but I can't enjoy it to the fullest extent as long as I'm in the gray world. Because as long as I say I'm in recovery, then I still have that option of an eating disorder. I'm in recovery, so I still could relapse, so I'm still making that an option. That is still an option for me if I am in eating disorder land. And I don't want that to be an option anymore. I mean, I finally get to this point where I'm like, wow, what am I hanging on to? And I got to the point where I was just frustrated, because I'm an athlete, and I want to take care of my body, and I want to be able to perform, and I started working with a sports dietitian who works with eating disorders and who's been an Olympic athlete herself, and who really knows nutrition. I mean, she's not just your run-of-the-mill nutritionist. She knows nutrition, and she does this thorough in and out evaluation, is giving me this thorough meal plan that still has some flexibility towards intuitive eating, but has some structure for athletes and for my level of endurance for marathon running and ultra marathon running and boxing. And I started following this plan, and I figured out that unknowingly I was still restrictive in my diet. And when I started following this plan, I became a lot less restrictive. I was eating twice as much as I thought I could, and I was actually losing weight, eating twice as much food as I thought I ever could, and eating a ton of calories. I'm not actually measuring calories, I'm measuring exchanges, but anyway, it's a lot of food, and I didn't think I could do it. But when I started doing it, I discovered my performance did get better, and not only that, but my thought process got better. My mood became a lot happier, more stable, and I was like, wow, maybe some of this mood stuff that's going on is actually related to my diet, not just that I'm crazy. And I still got some chemical imbalances, but being on the right diet helps with those chemical imbalances, and sleeping better, performing better, thinking better. And I thought, wow, I like being on this. And the other part is that I'm doing therapy now as a student, and I am working with people that come in that have eating disorders. And so I'm treating people with eating disorders. And so for me to actually go back to my eating disorder, that would be something that would be incongruent with what I'm doing, is helping people recover and helping people and working in recovery and promoting recovery, but also keeping that option open myself to relapse. And I went through this period where I was having this emotional struggle, and I was like, wow, I'm feeling intense emotions right now. I was having kind of this mood cycle where I was feeling everything because I wasn't using my eating disorder. Because when you don't use your eating disorder, when you feel bad, you feel really bad. And you feel really raw, and you feel really exposed. And when you feel lonely, you feel the full extent of that loneliness. But you also feel the full extent of happiness and joy. And I had reached a point, and eventually you reach a point where you realize, I feel sad and lonely and and fearful, but I'm learning that I can feel this, and it's not going to kill me, and doesn't mean that it has to control my actions. It doesn't mean I has to control my day. I don't have to have a bad day or bad week because I'm having this mood cycle or because something happened and I'm feeling this. So that's the point I had got at, and I started thinking about it, and I thought, so what am I still hanging on to? And because I was so frustrated, because I'm like, well, I really want to numb this out a little bit, but I can't use my eating disorder, and I don't know how to do it. And so I was just angry and angrier. And finally I realized why I'm making myself angry over something I know I'm not going to do anyway, because I don't want to make it an option. And finally I decided, fear itself is fear, and I face a lot of fear. I do a lot of things that I'm afraid of because I want to. I've gotten to a point where I embrace fear. Why am I afraid of that? Why is it making me fearful, and what can I do to overcome it, and how can I just face it? And I decided the only way that I was ever going to do that was to finally just run across the bridge, and almost without thinking about it, just ran right across. And of course, the portal disappeared, and got to the other side, and I kind of had this little panic attack, and then I looked around and I settled down. And part of my issue was that I was afraid. I had gained a lot of support in recovery, and I had a big support system, and I thought, well, if I cross the bridge and I'm okay, then what's going to happen to that support? What if I really need help again sometime? What if I say that I'm well, but I still need help? And I realized I'm still thinking very black and white, because of course I'm going to need help at some point. Everybody does, whether you're well or not. And the thing that I discovered is everybody that was there on my support system had never been in the black and white world where I thought they were. They were always in the color world, and I had come over to them, and they were still there. And instead of using just self-destructive behaviors to get what I needed or to get what I wanted, I've learned to state what I need and just recognize, oh, this is what I need right now, and go to that person and say, I really need this from you right now. Can you help me? And most people are willing to. And the same goes for the other way around. People come to me and say, hey, I need this. Can I help you? Or can you help me? And of course I will. And the colors are, you experience this whole range of emotions. And so you can feel a little happy or a little sad, or a lot happy or a lot sad, or everything in between where you couldn't feel before. And I recognize that in this color world, the happiness is a state of being. It's not an emotion. So you can feel depressed and be happy. You can feel anxious and be happy. You can feel fearful and still be happy, because you can process it and work through it. And when I got there and looked back, I could see the gray world. And but the contrast was, instead of wanting what was in the gray world, I looked at it and it was this eyesore because I didn't want anything over there. There was nothing over there, and I could truly see that when I came over to the black, or from the black and white world, when I came over, everything good was there. That's where everything good was. And there was really nothing in the gray world. And I don't ever want to go back. And I don't even know how to tell you I had this just shift, but I know that I'm recovered. And I know that I can have hard times and still ask for help. I'm going to end this video now. It'll be 3 sections, so have a good night.